It started with small things, details that would be easy to dismiss if you weren't paying attention. Lauren began coming home later than usual, often with vague explanations about work projects that needed her attention. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had a demanding job, and late nights were not unheard of. But it wasn't just the hours. It was the way she seemed distant, almost distracted, as if her mind was elsewhere even when she was sitting right beside me. She didn't offer the same warmth in our conversations, and there were fewer moments of genuine connection. Then came the times when she wouldn't pick up the phone. I'd call her to see if she needed me to pick anything up on my way home, and it would go straight to voicemail. Her excuse was always the same. Sorry, I was in a meeting, or I didn't hear the phone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. One night, after yet another late return, I noticed something odd. She was dressed differently than when she left that morning. I knew Lauren's style well, and this wasn't an outfit she would normally wear to the office. It was more suited for a night out than a work meeting. When I casually asked if she had gone out for drinks after work, she hesitated before answering, just a quick one with some colleagues. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and I could sense a layer of tension beneath the surface. As the weeks went by, the oddities continued. There were unexplained absences on weekends, times when she claimed she had to catch up on work, but couldn't provide specifics about what she was working on. Her phone became practically glued to her hand, and she would often leave the room to answer calls or send messages. It was unlike her, and I felt a growing knot in my stomach, tightening with each passing day. I started paying closer attention to the details: her schedule, her behavior, the way she reacted when I asked innocent questions. The more I observed, the more I became convinced that there was something deeper at play. It was the little things that stood out. The scent of unfamiliar cologne lingering on her clothes, receipts for items I never saw her use, and the sudden, almost forced enthusiasm when she would speak about her busy workdays. I knew I had to find out the truth, and I couldn't just rely on guesswork. That's when the idea of setting up hidden cameras came to me. It felt extreme, but I needed answers, and I needed them soon. If I was wrong, I would at least be able to confront my paranoia and move on. But if I was right, well, I wasn't even sure what I would do then. After she left for work one morning, I set up the cameras discreetly around the house, one in the living room, one in the hallway near our bedroom, and another in the kitchen. They were small, barely noticeable, and I positioned them to capture the areas she frequented most when she came home. I felt a pang of guilt as I hid the last camera, but I pushed it aside. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy for no reason. I was trying to protect myself from the possibility that my wife was hiding something. For the first few days, the footage didn't show much of anything. Lauren would come home late, change out of her work clothes, and go straight to bed. Her routine seemed almost too normal, like she was going out of her way to act like nothing was wrong. But there was something about her eyes, an almost haunted look that I had never noticed before. It was as if she was hiding a secret too big to bear. The break finally came on a Friday night. I was reviewing the day's footage, expecting to see the usual pattern, when I noticed something different. She came home carrying a bag I didn't recognize, sleek, black, and definitely not her usual style. I watched as she took it straight to the bedroom closet and tucked it away behind some old clothes. My curiosity piqued. I decided to check it out the first chance I got. Later that night, when she was in the shower, I quietly opened the closet and pulled out the bag. My hands trembled slightly as I unzipped it. Inside, I found expensive-looking makeup that I had never seen her use, a perfume bottle that wasn't her usual scent, and a set of black lingerie, something she had never worn for me. The realization hit me hard, my heart sinking into the pit of my stomach. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or paranoia. Something was definitely going on. I put everything back the way I found it, closed the closet, and walked out of the room, my thoughts racing. The weight of the situation was finally beginning to sink in, and with it, a dark realization. My suspicions weren't just in my head. Lauren was hiding something big, and now I was more determined than ever to find out what it was. The bag I found in the closet kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. It was a stark contrast to the life we had built together, a life I thought I knew. But now, it felt like I was staring at a picture that had been torn and hastily put back together, with crucial pieces still missing. I needed more than just suspicious items hidden in a bag. I needed something concrete, something that would give me undeniable proof of what was really happening behind my back. The next few nights, I paid close attention to the cameras, spending hours reviewing every minute of footage after Lauren had gone to bed. Most nights, the recordings were uneventful, just her usual routine of coming home, grabbing a quick bite, and heading to bed. But then, on the following Wednesday, I noticed something peculiar. Lauren arrived home looking visibly nervous, her eyes darting around as if she was worried about being watched. She went straight to the closet where the bag was kept and pulled it out. I watched as she retrieved a small black book from the bag and flipped through it quickly, jotting something down before shoving it back inside and zipping the bag shut. There was something about the way she moved, hurried and anxious, that made it clear this was no ordinary to-do list. I couldn't help but wonder if this was some kind of diary or planner, detailing secret meetings or names of people I had never heard of. That same night, I waited for her to fall asleep before quietly getting out of bed and making my way back to the closet. I found the book tucked inside the bag, just as I had seen earlier. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages, and I was struck by what I found: cryptic notes, phone numbers without names, and places listed with dates but no clear context. One note in particular caught my eye. Friday, 7 p.m., same place. It was underlined twice. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I had a sinking feeling that it wasn't good. The following Friday, I decided to leave work early, telling Lauren that I had a late meeting and wouldn't be home until later that night. I parked my car a few blocks away from our house and waited. I kept my distance, staying hidden in my car while I watched the front door. At exactly 6:45 p.m., Lauren stepped out wearing the same outfit I had seen her change into after work just weeks earlier, the one that didn't seem suited for the office. She was clearly dressed to impress, with a confidence in her stride that I hadn't seen in a long time. I followed her discreetly as she drove across town to a part of the city where we never usually went. She parked in front of a quaint little cafe, and I watched as she walked in. My pulse quickened with every passing second. I waited, wondering if I should follow her inside. But just as I was about to get out of the car, I saw a man approach her. He was tall, with an athletic build and a relaxed demeanor. Lauren greeted him with a smile that wasn't meant for a friend or colleague. It was a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. I watched as they sat at a table near the window, chatting and laughing like old friends. There was a familiarity in the way she touched his arm, a softness in her eyes that I had believed was reserved for me. I couldn't stay there any longer. I drove away before my anger could get the best of me, before I did something I would regret. Back home, I sat on the couch, numb and exhausted. Seeing her with that man had felt like a punch to the gut, but I still didn't have definitive proof. It could have been a coincidence, an innocent meetup. I needed to know more, so I decided to dig deeper into her phone. That night, while she was asleep, I cloned her phone using a tool I had purchased online. It allowed me to see her messages, calls, and even access her location history. What I found only added fuel to the fire. There were messages from an unknown number, filled with vague, flirtatious language, though nothing explicitly incriminating. But the timing of the messages was suspicious, always around the times she claimed to be working late or catching up with friends. There were no saved contacts under that number, just conversations that seemed to dance around the truth without ever revealing it. Yet, there was one text that stood out. "Can't wait for our next night together." It had been sent the previous Wednesday, right after she wrote in that black book. I didn't confront Lauren immediately. I needed more than just a few text messages and a mysterious meeting. I needed something that would force her to admit the truth. As painful as it was, I knew I had to keep playing along, pretending everything was normal. Each day that passed felt like a lifetime, but I kept up the facade, smiling when I had to, acting indifferent when I felt anything but. My search continued, now more determined than ever to uncover the full extent of her betrayal. There was no turning back now. Whatever secret life Lauren was leading, I was getting closer to the truth. And once I had it, I would make sure there was no way for her to deny what she had done. The weeks that followed felt like I was living in a fog. Lauren went about her daily routine, completely unaware that I was unraveling the secret life she had kept hidden. Every night, after she went to bed, I would scour through the cloned phone data, comb through the camera footage, and double-checked the contents of the black bag she kept in the closet. The more I dug, the more I realized how little I knew about my own wife. Then, one night, everything changed. As I was reviewing the latest footage from the camera in the living room, something caught my eye. It was the middle of the afternoon, and Lauren had come home earlier than expected. She was on the phone, speaking in a low, urgent tone that I could barely make out. I turned up the volume, straining to hear her words. "Have to be careful. Someone could notice," she whispered, pacing back and forth. There was a pause as she listened to the other person on the line. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. We just need to keep things discreet. Okay?" The rest of the conversation was a blur. Her tone, the secrecy, it all pointed to something much darker than just an affair. I fast-forwarded the footage to later that evening. She was back in the living room, setting up a small camera on a tripod. My pulse quickened as I watched her angle the camera toward the couch. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was she planning to film something here, in our own home? I kept watching, not knowing what to expect, and then it happened. Lauren brought the same black bag out of the closet and began setting up as if preparing for a production. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen as I watched her adjust the lighting and position the camera with an expertise that suggested this wasn't her first time. Moments later, there was a knock on the door, and that same man from the cafe walked in. They exchanged a quick hug before settling onto the couch, completely unaware that they were being recorded by a second camera, my camera hidden discreetly behind the bookshelf. I felt a cold wave wash over me as I realized what was happening. She wasn't just having an affair. She was leading a double life, using our home as the set for some kind of twisted project. I continued to watch in horror as they carried out their encounter, completely oblivious to the camera's gaze. Afterward, Lauren calmly collected the equipment and placed everything back in the bag, as if this was just another ordinary day. It wasn't just an affair. It was a business. She was recording these encounters and selling the videos online. I found the website a few days later, hidden in the browser history of her laptop. The site featured dozens of videos, all filmed in various locations, including hotels and what seemed to be other private residences. The titles, the descriptions, it was all there, along with countless views and comments. The realization struck me like a freight train. Lauren wasn't just leading a secret life, she was profiting from it. I could hardly believe it. The woman I had shared my life with, the mother of my children, had turned our marriage into a facade. I felt anger, betrayal, and a deep sense of humiliation as I sat there, staring at the screen. The more I uncovered, the deeper the betrayal ran. It wasn't just the man from the cafe. There were others, many others. Different men, different scenarios, all recorded and sold online for profit. The scope of her deception left me feeling sick to my stomach. I hadn't just lost my wife to another man, I had lost her to a lifestyle, a world I didn't even know existed, and she had kept it all hidden so well, right under my nose. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one darker than the last. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to my face, pretending that everything was normal? I knew then that there was no going back. Confronting her with what I knew would only lead to more lies, more excuses. I had to take control of the situation, to find a way to make her feel the same pain and betrayal that I was experiencing. And so, a plan began to form in my mind. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to use her own lies against her and take back the power that she had stolen from me. I copied all the videos and prepared to create a fake account of my own. If she was going to profit off these betrayals, then so would I. It was only the beginning of what I had in mind. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming the life she had shattered and making her pay for every deceitful act she had committed. Sitting in front of my computer, I stared at the folder containing the videos I had copied from Lauren's laptop. Each file was a reminder of the lies, of the betrayal, and of the life I thought we had. I could have confronted her that night, could have yelled and demanded answers, but that wouldn't have been enough. It wouldn't come close to the depth of hurt and humiliation I felt. No, I wanted something more. I wanted to turn the tables and make her feel the sting of betrayal, to let her taste the bitterness of her own deceit. The plan began to take shape in my mind, a dark satisfaction growing as I pieced together the details. I created a fake account on the same site where Lauren was selling her videos. Using a different name and identity, I began uploading the same videos she had posted, setting up my own page to profit from her work. It felt twisted and wrong, but I didn't care. If she was willing to exploit our marriage and make money off her affairs, then I could do the same. And this way, I'd be taking something back, claiming a piece of the power she had stolen. For the next few weeks, I carefully monitored her activity. Lauren continued her secret double life, completely oblivious to the fact that I was watching and profiting alongside her. Each time she posted a new video, I'd upload it as well under my fake account, siphoning off a portion of her earnings. I didn't do it for the money. It was about the principle, about turning her own deception into my tool for revenge. It was a game of cat and mouse, and I was slowly gaining the upper hand. The more I got involved, the more I realized that just copying her videos wasn't enough. I needed to hit her where it hurt the most. That's when I met Rachel. She was everything Lauren wasn't: young, lively, and genuinely interested in me. At first, she was just a distraction, a way for me to escape the toxic reality of my crumbling marriage. But as we spent more time together, I began to see Rachel as a means to deepen my revenge. If Lauren could cheat and pretend as if nothing was wrong, then I could show her what it felt like to be on the receiving end of infidelity. I started an affair with Rachel, deliberately letting Lauren notice subtle signs of perfume scent that wasn't hers, text messages from a colleague that I didn't bother to hide, and the occasional missed dinner that I blamed on late meetings. It wasn't long before Lauren began to pick up on these clues. I could see the unease in her eyes, the growing suspicion. It was exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be in the dark, to question the loyalty of the person she trusted. But it didn't stop there. I started spending more nights away from home, openly taking Rachel out in public. I wasn't subtle about it, and word began to get around. I even splurged on expensive gifts for Rachel using the money I had earned from selling Lauren's videos. It felt satisfying in a twisted way, using the very thing that Lauren had betrayed me with to fuel my own affair. It was as if I was reclaiming some part of myself that had been lost in all the lies and secrets. As my relationship with Rachel grew more serious, Lauren's behavior began to change. She tried harder to get my attention, cooking dinners, suggesting weekends away, things she hadn't bothered to do in months. But I remained distant, indifferent. It was almost too easy to watch her struggle to regain control, to see the panic in her eyes when she realized that she was losing me. The more Lauren tried, the more I pushed her away, sinking deeper into my relationship with Rachel. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. I found a strange sense of liberation in living this double life, in being the one who kept secrets and knowing that, this time, Lauren was the one on the outside, trying to figure out what was happening. The final step of my plan was nearing, and I was ready to see it through. I was going to confront her, show her the evidence of her own infidelities, and then reveal my affair with Rachel. The thought of the look on her face, the realization that she had lost me not because of her own double life, but because I had decided to walk away, gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in a long time. Lauren had turned our marriage into a game, but now I was the one making the rules. And I was about to show her that in this game, there would only be one winner. It was only a matter of time before Lauren began to suspect that something was seriously wrong. My absences were growing more frequent, and I could see the unease in her eyes every time I came home late or shrugged off her attempts to reconnect. The subtle clues I had left were working their way into her mind, planting seeds of doubt and making her question what was happening right under her nose. I could tell she was close to confronting me, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of thinking she had figured it out first. No, I was going to take control of the narrative and make sure she knew exactly how far she had fallen. One evening, I decided it was time to put the final phase of my plan into action. I deliberately left my phone on the kitchen counter with a message from Rachel displayed on the screen. "I can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." It wasn't long before Lauren came into the room and saw the message. Her expression hardened as she picked up the phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she scrolled through the conversation. "What is this, Adam?" she asked, her voice a mix of hurt and accusation. "Who is Rachel?" I didn't even bother to act surprised. Instead, I met her gaze calmly and said, "I think we both know that neither of us has been entirely honest, Lauren. Don't pretend you haven't noticed things changing between us. I could see the shock on her face, the realization that I wasn't going to deny it, that I was turning the confrontation back on her. She tried to keep her composure, but the cracks were already showing. What do you mean? Are you saying you've been seeing someone else? She demanded, her voice rising. Why don't we talk about what you've been doing first? I said, taking a step closer and lowering my voice. I know all about the videos, Lauren. I know about the men you've been bringing here, about your little business on the side. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? The color drained from her face as she staggered back. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, but then she saw the look in my eyes cold, knowing. There was no point in pretending anymore. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I had prepared, filled with the videos and the screenshots of her online account. I placed it in front of her, watching as she scrolled through the evidence. Her hands flew to her mouth, and I could see the panic set in. Adam, I can explain, she stammered, but there was no conviction in her voice. It's not what it looks like. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. Oh, I'm sure you didn't, I replied, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Just like you didn't mean to turn our home into your personal studio or lie to my face for months. I don't care about your excuses, Lauren. The fact is, you betrayed me, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. The realization of how much I knew hit her hard, and for a brief moment, I saw the guilt and regret in her eyes. But it didn't matter. It was too late for apologies. The tables had turned, and I was the one holding all the cards. I didn't stop there. And by the way, Rachel isn't just a fling. She's someone who actually appreciates me, who doesn't need to live a double life to feel fulfilled. We've been together for months now, I said, watching as her expression shifted from shock to fury. In fact, she's the one who helped me realize that I deserved better than this, better than you. The impact of my words was unmistakable. Her face twisted with a mixture of jealousy, anger, and desperation. You did this just to hurt me? She asked, her voice breaking. You went out and found someone else just to get back at me? No, Lauren. I did it because I realized I was already living in a lie. I answered coldly. You broke our marriage a long time ago. I'm just the one who decided to walk away instead of pretending everything was fine. Lauren's efforts to win me back intensified over the next few days, but it was obvious that they were driven more by her fear of losing control than by any genuine remorse. She tried to be affectionate, cooked elaborate meals, and suggested weekend getaways. But I remained indifferent, unmoved by her sudden change of heart. The truth was, I had already moved on. My life with Rachel felt more real, more honest than anything I had shared with Lauren in years. It wasn't long before Lauren stumbled upon the fake account I had set up to sell her videos. She confronted me with a mix of disbelief and outrage, demanding to know how I could do such a thing. I looked her in the eye and said, I only did what you did first. If you could exploit our marriage for profit, why couldn't I? The rage in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. She finally understood that the power dynamic had shifted and that I wasn't the same man she had deceived. I had taken her secret and used it to reclaim my life, and there was no going back. The tables had indeed turned, and now, Lauren was left with the shattered pieces of the life she thought she controlled. Lauren's face was a mask of anger and disbelief, her emotions shifting rapidly as the reality of the situation sank in. She tried to gain the upper hand, to challenge me, but I had all the leverage. I could see it in her eyes. She knew it too. Her attempts to control the narrative were failing, and she was running out of ways to spin the truth. There was no escaping what she had done or what I had discovered. The morning after our confrontation, she insisted we talk things through, as though an explanation could fix the deep rift she had created. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity to hear what she would say, but also because I wanted to see her squirm. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where so many of our conversations had once been mundane and ordinary. Now, it was a battlefield. Adam, I know I made a mistake, she began, her voice trembling. I got caught up in something that I shouldn't have, but we can work through this. We've been together for so long. I don't want to throw it all away. You got caught up in something? I echoed, my voice rising with incredulity. This isn't some fleeting lapse in judgment. Lauren. You turned our marriage into a show for strangers. You didn't just betray me once, you did it over and over again, for months. And then you tried to pretend that nothing was wrong. I'm sorry, she pleaded, reaching across the table for my hand, but I pulled back. I didn't want to hurt you. I needed an escape. It started as a thrill, something that felt different and exciting, but it got out of control. Her excuses fell flat, as if they were rehearsed lines meant to elicit pity. I wasn't interested in why she did it. I was beyond that now. An escape? I spat out, shaking my head. And what exactly were you escaping from, Lauren? From me? From our life together? Was that not good enough for you? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't relent. She deserved to feel every bit of the pain and humiliation that I had felt. You had a choice, I continued. You could have told me if you were unhappy, if you needed something more. But instead, you chose to go behind my back. You chose to live a lie. Her defenses began to crumble, and she sobbed openly. I'm begging you, Adam. Let's just try to fix this. I'll delete everything. I'll cut off all contact with them. We can go to counseling, anything. Just don't leave me. But I had already made up my mind. I wasn't looking for reconciliation. I was looking for closure. You're not the one who gets to dictate what happens next, I said, my voice steady and cold. You didn't give me a choice when you decided to lead a double life. And now, I'm not giving you one. Then, I delivered the final blow. I've already filed for divorce, Lauren, and I've made sure you won't be able to profit off your little business anymore. All those videos? I took them down. They're gone. I'm moving on, with or without you. She froze, her eyes wide with shock. What? You can't just leave like this. We have a life together. You can't just throw it away. Oh, I can. I replied calmly, and I already have. Our life was a lie. The moment you decided to make our marriage a backdrop for your affairs, you threw it away. I'm just cleaning up the mess. For a moment, she seemed too stunned to respond. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, her sorrow gave way to rage. And what about Rachel? She snapped. Are you going to pretend that you're any better than I am? You're just as guilty, Adam. You cheated on me too. I could see she was grasping at straws, desperately trying to find some way to share the blame. But this wasn't about my affair with Rachel. This was about Lauren's betrayal. The difference, I said, is that I didn't lie to myself about who I was with. I wasn't the one pretending everything was fine while living a completely separate life. I took action because you broke us, Lauren. She stood up from the table, trembling with fury. You think you've won, don't you? That walking away and leaving me with nothing will somehow make you better than me? It's not about winning, I replied quietly. It's about ending this. You're not the woman I thought I married, and I'm done pretending that we can fix something that's already broken beyond repair. In the days that followed, the reality of my decision became more tangible. I finalized the paperwork, transferred the money from our joint accounts, and sold our house. I made arrangements to move to another city with Rachel, leaving no trace of the life I once shared with Lauren. The last time I saw her, she stood on the front porch of our empty house, looking hollow and defeated. There were no more words left to say. As I drove away, a sense of finality washed over me. I wasn't just leaving Lauren behind. I was leaving behind the man I had been, the one who let betrayal tear his world apart. Now, I was moving forward, ready to start over, free from the weight of her deception. The climax had come and gone, and with it, so had my past. The day I drove away from the empty house felt like a strange mix of freedom and finality. As I left behind the place where my marriage had crumbled, I realized I wasn't just escaping from Lauren, but from the person I had become, the man who had once been defined by his trust in her. Now, I was someone different, someone who had taken control and chosen to let go of the past rather than let it destroy him. Rachel and I settled into our new life in a different city, where no one knew our history. It felt refreshing to walk down the streets without the weight of my old life clinging to me. The guilt and pain I had carried for months slowly began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. The money from selling the house and liquidating joint accounts gave us a cushion to start over, and we invested some of it in a small business venture I'd been eyeing for years, a modest cafe that I could finally bring to life. Rachel was there every step of the way. She helped with the renovations, the hiring, and even the branding. It wasn't just about building a business together. It was about building a life that was authentically ours. She wasn't like Lauren. There were no hidden agendas, no secrets lurking beneath the surface. With Rachel, I felt like I could finally breathe, as if I was no longer living in the shadows. Our relationship wasn't perfect, of course. We still had moments where the scars from our pasts would surface, where the memories of betrayal would briefly cloud our happiness. But we were honest about it. We didn't pretend that our lives were spotless or that the past hadn't shaped us. It was that raw honesty that made our bond stronger. We knew where we had come from, and we were determined to make this new beginning count. Lauren's fate was never far from my mind, though I never reached out to her. I had no desire to hear her excuses or to offer her any sense of closure. I knew from a few mutual friends that she had tried to rebuild, but it wasn't easy. Her reputation had suffered after I revealed the truth to a few key people who mattered in her social circle. The life she had curated so carefully fell apart, and she struggled to find steady work, especially in fields where her double life would be seen as a liability. Every now and then, I'd hear about her trying to move on, but the stories were always the same. Lauren was stuck in the past, trying to salvage the remnants of the life she had wrecked. It was sad in a way, but it was also a reminder of the consequences of her choices. She had thrown away a life we had built together for a thrill, and now she was paying the price. I felt no need to pity her. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The cafe took off quickly, far beyond what I had initially hoped for. We started hosting live music nights, and Rachel took on more responsibility, eventually managing the place while I explored new ventures. The business wasn't just a financial success. It was a symbol of everything I had: reclaimed my independence, my sense of purpose, and my ability to move forward without looking back. One evening, as Rachel and I sat on the patio of our cafe, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized just how far I had come. There was no longer a lingering bitterness or anger. The betrayal that had once consumed me was now just a chapter in a book I had closed for good. Rachel squeezed my hand, and I looked at her, grateful for the new life we had created together. "Here's to new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass with hers. As we sipped our drinks, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. I had taken the pain, the betrayal, and the anger, and used it to forge a path forward, a path that was no longer dictated by someone else's lies. The past was behind me, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what the future might bring. Whatever happened, I knew I would face it head-on, with Rachel by my side. Together, we would continue to build the life we deserved, free from secrets, free from the ghosts of our past. As I watched the last light of day fade away, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. It was the feeling of a true new beginning, and I was finally ready to embrace it.